confuses me. So Canto 3, Chapter 28 overview. So we are in this section of teachings of Lord Kapila, which is the last section of Canto 3. We saw so many things in Canto 3. The last topic is Kardama Muni's life and Kapil Dev's teachings. So we completed Kardama Muni's life earlier, and then we started the teachings of Lord Kapila from the previous chapters. We have been seeing the various teachings that Kapil Dev was speaking to Devahuti. So he spoke first about the process of devotional service in the 7th chapter, 25th chapter, and then 26 and 27. He was speaking about the Sankhya Yoga. And this is today we are going to speak about the 28th chapter, in which he is going to discuss actually the instructions on the execution of devotional service. It is titled like that. However, this subject matter of this chapter is mainly Bhakti Mishra Yoga. Last week we saw Bhakti Mishra Jnana process, and in this particular chapter we will be seeing Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga. So that is the main topic of this particular chapter, Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga. It is going to explain Ashtanga Yoga, but it will have the elements of bhakti included in it. That's why it's called Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga. And this chapter 28 speaks about the question that Devahuti asked in the previous chapters about yoga. She asked a question about Sankhya and yoga. The Kapil Dev spoke about Sankhya in chapters 26 and 27. After finishing that topic, now he is speaking about yoga. So Lord Kapila is going to describe the meditation of the Ashtanga Yoga system in detail, by which the yogi actually attains liberation without effort, or with by the mercy of the Lord. Comparative to a yogi who is doing it only yoga, this yogi achieves his goal much better because he has bhakti also included in it. So that's why this system is called as Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga. So if anyone has any questions, we can take. Otherwise, we can go to the next topic. Okay. So in this chapter 28, which is entitled Till Prabhupada as instructions on the execution of devotion service, there are total 44 verses. And the first 12 verses we'll be speaking about the various limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga means 8 limbs, 8 angas. So the 8 limbs of the yoga process we will be seeing, that Kapil Dev describes to Devahuti in the verse 1 to 12. After that, in the process of Ashtanga Yoga, there is a step called as Dharana, which is also meditation, you can say, but it is mainly a broken meditation, which is not very deep. That in that Dharana, there is a Dharana Ashraya, there is an object of meditation. So from verses 13 to 18, we will be seeing the Dharana Ashraya of this Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yogi. Dharanashraya means the object of his meditation. What is he going to meditate upon? That object of meditation we will be describing in the verses from 13 to 18. And dhyana is a detailed meditation, is a very absorbed meditation, very detailed meditation. So the overall form of the Lord will be described in 13 to 18, and the very particulars of the Lord's form will be described from verses 21 to 33. And then, after meditating in this way, what happens to the yogi? What happens to his mind when he is so much absorbed in the meditation of the Lord's form? What happens to his mind? That we will see, and how he achieves liberation will be explained in 32 to 38. And once he is liberated while living, when his mind is completely purified and he is situated in that platform, what is his thought process? How does he think? So that thought process of the yogi also will be described in the towards the end of this particular chapter. So in short, this chapter is going to describe about Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yogi. So his process will be described in short in 1 to 12 verses, and his Dharana Ashraya will be explained. That is, the object of his meditation will be explained in brief in 13 to 18, in detail 19 to 33, and from 34 to 38, what is the state of his mind after meditating, and how does he achieve liberation, and what is his thought process, that we will see in this particular chapter. So verses 1 to 12 describes the various limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. I'm pretty sure I'm here. Athena is also there. These are practicing yogis. I'm not even like knowing these topics so much. So here, this whole chapter is about Ashtanga Yoga. So the eight limbs of Ashtanga Yoga, everybody knows: Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. So out of these eight, we'll be seeing each one in this particular section. So in this section, we will see the definition and details of Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi, the eight limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. So first of all, Kapil Dev in the first verse explains that how he will explain the Ashtanga Yoga system or the yoga system, which is the object of which is to meditate on the Supreme Lord. Meditate and concentrate the mind. That is the objective of yoga. What is the main objective of yoga? It is to actually make the mind meditate on an object, and depends on different people will meditate on different objects. But the Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yogi, who is explained in this particular chapter by Kapil Dev, focuses his attention on the form of the Supreme Lord. So that's what he is saying, he will explain in this chapter. And then from verses 2 to 4, he speaks about Yama and Niyama, the rules and the do's and the don'ts. So, how one should execute his prescribed duties to the best of ability and avoid performing duties not allotted, satisfied with what is achieved by Lord's grace, worshipping the lotus feet of a spiritual master, cessation of conventional religious practices, attracted to those who lead to salvation, eating very frugally, always remaining in a secluded place, non-violence, truthfulness, refraining from theft, possessing only whatever is necessary, celibacy, austerity, cleanliness, study of the Vedas, worshipping the Supreme Lord, and maintaining silence. So, in this way, there is a huge list of do's and yama and niyama, both are explained, what to do and what not to do. So, and then the asana is explained in short, like attaining steadiness by mastering the process of asanas, correct asanas. By practicing that, they achieve bodily stability. And then pranayama is described. So we all know pranayama is actually control of the breath, control of the vital layers. So through the process of manipulating and controlling the vital layers, he achieves more and more control over the body, and also he can gradually meditate later. And with pratyahara, so before meditating, one has to for meditation, one has to have his attention on a particular object. But if his senses are getting distracted, then he won't be able to meditate. That is why before beginning of the meditation, pratyahara process is followed, where he takes his senses away from unnecessary things and gradually starts to concentrate the mind in the heart. So he removes himself as much as possible from the material objects. Pratyahara means reducing the food. But food is not just the eating which happens, but food is also the objects that we see, food is also the objects that we hear, food is also objects we touch and feel and taste. Everything is a food as per, according to the body, because all these holes are input holes. So all these holes which can take input, that is all reduced, that is all stopped, or to the extent it is like very much reduced, so that his mind is not disturbed, so that he can focus his mind. Once he achieves some amount of pratyahara, naturally his mind will start to fix the prana at one spot among the various chakras by mind. And gradually, then he will enter into the aspect of dhyana. He will meditate on the limbs of the Lord and even pastimes of the Lord. So, in this way, the state of the mind of the yogi becomes completely absorbed in the Lord. That is his samadhi. So, in this way, gradually he does one by one. So that in short, all these processes are explained in 5 to 6 verse. And in the 7th verse, how by fixing the mind on the Lord by these various processes, one must control the contaminated mind and fix it on the Lord, so that when he fixes, then only he can actually practice yoga. So then it is also given what are the requirements for practicing asana. If someone wants to practice asana, how can he actually practice asana? controlling the mind and sitting postures. One needs to sit in swastika asana. One needs to establish a seat in a clean place, keeping the body straight. So all these things are explained in the, as part of the requirements for asana. So limbs of Ashtanga Yoga. I'm sorry. Yes. So from the verses 9 to 10, then he controls the mind through pranayam, because now he is performing asana. So now then he performs pranayam to control his mind, and then he practices pratyahara, frees one from the material association with sense objects. Sorry, I typed in the wrong order. After pranayama, it is pratyahara. So by practicing pranayam, he destroys the doshas in the body. He controls all the different doshas in the body so that his body is strong. And by practicing pratyahara, he frees his mind from its material association with sense objects. By his dharana, he destroys his sinful sins. Basically, he does not engage, rather, he focuses on the Lord. So, by meditating on the Lord, his sins are reduced. Dhyana, he becomes completely freed from the modes of influence of the modes of material nature. And then he will go to the steady step of samadhi. So, when the mind becomes completely steady by the practice of yoga, by looking at the tip of the nose and meditating on the Supreme Lord, so then he gradually goes into the next level of samadhi. So now, if anybody has any questions, we can take at this point of time. Otherwise, the next section is where the Dharanashraya, the object of his meditation, will be described. So far in the first 12 verses, we saw in brief, Kapil Dev is explaining to Devahuti what is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In short, he is explaining, okay, for Niyama, practice celibacy, don't steal, like reduce your material attachments. In this way he speaks, and then you perform pranayam to control the mind, and then he explains the different effects of pranayam and pratyahar, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. So if there are no questions, then we can go to the next section. So today there is going to be a lot of Sanskrit verses. Please, if Sanskrit verses is not your thing, please forgive me, because it's the whole section is a very famous section, and it describes the form of the Lord and then the different limbs of the Lord. So without actually chanting them, it's quite difficult to describe the whole section, and that is the major chunk of this chapter. So I'm going to chant most of the Sanskrit verses and then just describe the Sanskrit verses translation. So it's not a very technical section, it's just a sweet section where the Lord's form is going to be described. So kindly pay attention, it is just the form of the Lord. So it's a benefit of meditating on the Lord's form. So meditation on the Lord's form, the third anga of the nine-limbed bhakti process, which is smarana, is the seventh anga in Ashtanga Yoga. So actually in the bhakti process, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and then Smaranam comes. Meditation comes third. Here in the process of Ashtanga Yoga, it comes the seventh. So in yoga, this is for attaining liberation. So their idea is to attain liberation. That's why they are meditating on the Supreme Lord. But in the ninth process of devotional service, when we do Smaranam, which is also meditation, that is to develop a relationship with the Supreme Lord. So here Kapil Dev is going to describe the Lord's form used by both devotees as well as yogis for meditation. So this form of the Lord is, as a devotee also is meditating on the same form. Yogis also can meditate on the same form, but the idea is different. The yogi will meditate for the sake of liberation, but the devotee will be meditating for the sake of achieving a relationship with the Supreme Lord. So let me recite the verse 13 and then describe the various the translation. So in this total section from verses 13 to 18, what we will be seeing is the beauty of the Lord's face, eyes, bodily features, his Srivatsa mark, his Kaustubha gem, the Pitambara, the cloth that he wears, the ornament that he is adorned with, the garland that he is wearing. So everything will be described, his glories, and how by singing his glories one can be purified. So everything will be mentioned. So we will go verse by verse. So in the first, the 13th verse, which is the first verse in this section, we'll be explaining about the lotus face, the face of the Supreme Lord, his eyes, and what is the color of the his bodily hue, all that things will be explained. So I'll chant the verse and then explain the verse. So let's start. प्रसन्नवदनाम्भोजं पद्मगर्भारुणेक्षणं नीलोत्पलदलश्यामं शङ्खचक्रगदाधरम्. So his, what is his countenance? What is his face is like cheerful, is like happy, and his eyes are like slightly reddish, like in the corners it is reddish like a lotus petal, and his body looks like the petals of a blue lotus, and he bears a conch shell, and he has a discus, and he has a mace, and he has lotus in hands. So in this way, he is, his face is very cheerful. Prasanna vadanambojam is very pleasing. And Padma Garbharunekshanam means he is holding lotus. Nilot Paladala Shyamam. Nilot Pala. Utpala is lotus. Nila Utpala is blue lotus. Dala is petal. So he Shyamam. The Shyamam is the color of the blue lotus. His bodily hue is like the color of a blue lotus petal. Nilot Paladala Shyamam. Shankha Chakra Gadadharam. He is holding conch, discus, mace, and lotus in his hands. So, in this way, the first verse is speaking about the Lord's attributes. So, the next verse is Lasat Pankaja Kinjalka Pita Kausheya Vasasam Shri Vatsavakshasam Brajat Kaustuva Mukta Kantharam. His waist is covered with a shining cloth, yellowish like the filaments of a lotus. That's the pitambar, which is the yellow in color. His body, his below waist, he has a dhoti, and he on the upper he has a vastra. So both of them are yellowish in color. They look very bright yellow, like the filaments of a lotus. And on his chest, he wears a mark of Srivatsa, which is the mark of Lakshmi Devi, a curl of white hair. And a brilliant Kaustuba gem is suspended from his neck. So he has a brilliant Kaustuba gem on his neck. And then he is wearing a garland, which is also specifically actually described in the next verse. Mattadvirepa kalaya paritam vanamalaya parardhyahara valaya kiritangadanu Mattadvirepakalaya paritam vanamalaya pararthyaharavallaya kiritangadanupuram. So, what and all he is wearing, his ornaments are explained, and then the garlands are the garland is described. What is this garland? He also wears a garland on his neck with attractive flowers, which is like a combination of different forest flowers. And because those flowers are so fragrant, there is a swarm of bees intoxicated by its fragrance humming about the garland. And he is also having so many ornaments in his body. He is having a pearl necklace, he has a crown, he has a pair of armlets, bracelets, and anklets. He is having all these different ornaments that he is having. So in this way, the Lord's form is described, and the next verse explains how Kanchi Gunolo Sakshorinam Hridayam Bhoja Vistaram Darshaniyatamam Shantam Manonayana Vardhanam. So he is Darshaniyatamam Shantam. He actually is, he's the most charming to look at. He actually Darshaniya Tamam. He's like the thing that if you want to ever take any want to look at any object, he's the topmost object that you can actually have darshan. You can have your vision. So what your eyes can see, that the topmost object is him. Darshaniya Tamam Shantam. Mano Nayana Vardhanam. He completely pacifies. He completely pleases one's eyes and one's mind when they see him and they think of him. Hridayam Bhoja Vistaram. He is actually standing on the lotus of the Lord, devotee's heart. He is standing on the heart, Paramatma. Kanchi Gunol Losat Shornam. His hips, he has a girdle, he has a waistband kind of a thing on the top of his dhoti, on the top of his pitambara. Vishnu Thakur in another place while explaining Lord Narayan, he says, it's just a talk, it's just a very sweet thing. He says, the bees are considered the owner of the flowers. And why? Because they actually take the honey from the flowers. The best thing that is belonging to the flowers, honey, is taken by the bees. That's why the bees are considered the owners of the flowers. And Vishnu Thakur narrates a conversation between all the various paraphernalia of the Supreme Lord. The Pitambar says, "Oh, I'm so close to the Lord." But the waist band, the girdle says, "You are very close to the Lord, but I'm on top of you." From the aspect of being close to his body, from the top, if you see, I'm also close to him. Then the garland says, actually, you may all think like that, but I'm even on top of you. So I'm even on top of both the dhoti as well as on the girdle. But the bees ultimately think, you may be doing all this, and you may be on top of him, but I actually own the honey of yours. So he just narrates a conversation like that. So here in this verse, we can see how the Lord has garlands, the Lord has girdle, the Lord is wearing pitambar, and he has various ornaments. And he is the most perfect object of vision for anyone. Apicha darshanam shashvat sarvaloka namaskritam santam vayasi kaishore bhrityanugrahakataram sarvaloka namaskritam. He is worshipable for all the worlds. He is Sarvaloka Namaskritam. He is worshipable for all inhabitants of every planet. Eternally very beautiful. Apicha Darshanam Shashwat. He is eternally beautiful. It's not that when he is young, he is going to be beautiful. When he grows, he will not be beautiful. No. He eternally stays in this particular form. Apicha Darshanam Shashwat. Eternally beautiful. Shantam Vayasi Kaishore. He is always situated in that Kaishora Vaya, in the age of a youth and a boyhood kind of an age. Vayasika Ishore, Brityanugraha Kataram. He is very eager to bestow blessings upon his devotee. Britya Anugraha Katram. Katram is one who is very eager. What is the Lord eager for? Britya Anugraha, to give mercy to his devotees. He is very eagerly looking forward to bestow his mercy. When this person will turn to me, when this person will uh, focus his mind on me, so that I can give him mercy and take him back to the spiritual world. So, Britya Anugraha Kataram. He is always eager to bestow his blessings upon the devotees. And the next verse explains Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasham Punya Shloka Yashashkaram Dhyayed Deva Samagrangam Yavanna Chavate Manaha. कीर्तन्यतीर्थयशशं पुण्यश्लोकयशस्करं ध्यायेद्देवं समग्राङ्गं यावन्नच्यवते मनः कीर्तन्यतीर्थयशशं पुण्यश्लोकयशस्करं ध्यायेद्देवं समग्राङ्गं यावन्नच्यवते मनः. So, Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasham, his glories are always worth singing. Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasham. His Kirtanya means his glories, Yashasham, his glories are Kirtanyas, are worth glorifying. He is so great that his glories are worth singing. There is nothing else worth singing in this world. Kirtanya Tirtha Yashasham. It is only the Supreme Lord's glories that are worth singing. Punya Shloka Yashashkaram. He is being glorified by great verses by the devotees. Dhyayet Devam Samagrangam. One who should actually meditate on this Supreme Lord Samagrangam, on all his limbs. One should meditate on the whole form, Samagrangam. Yavanna Chevate Manaha. One should meditate on this form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed. Because now the yogi is just starting to meditate. So this is the stage of dharana. He does not have a lot of absorption, so and he cannot go into details because this is he is only starting to meditate. He has to meditate on samagrangam. He has to meditate on the overall form of the Lord, because that's what he can actually currently meditate. He has no ability to go into the details of the form, so he meditates overall form samagrangam, and he has to continue to meditate until his mind becomes fixed. It's not that uh, immediately it's going to be easy. So there is going to be efforts. There is going to be some time that he will take in order to actually, I'm sorry, this particular section I forgot to edit, I think. So, so in the 19th to 13th verse, he actually is describing about dhyana, which is the meditation on the individual limbs of the Lord. So we will see that section now from verses 19 to 33. It's a long section. If anyone has any questions at this point of time, we can take. I know it's not a question section because it's mostly the description of the Lord's form. So we will get into that. I didn't make slides for the whole section from 19 to 33. I'm just going to recite the verses and explain the whole section. In the 19th verse, Kapil Dev explains how thus always merged in the devotional service of the Lord. The yogi actually visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, or sitting within him. For the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. Gradually, by meditating like that, he also sees the Lord active. So, in fixing his mind on the eternal form of the Lord, the yogi should not take a collective view of all his limbs, but should fix the mind on each individual limb of the Lord. Now he has to make his meditation more focused. Now he had an overall form in his mind. So now he has to just start. He should not stop there. He has to start magnifying. He has to zoom in and see the individual limbs of the Lord and actually gradually make his mind more and more absorbed on the form of the Lord. So in the verse 21, Sanchintayed Bhagavatas Charanarvindam Vajrankushadvaja Saroruhalanchanadhyam Uttunga Rakta Vilasannaka Chakravala Jyotsna Virahatamahadridayandakaram यच्छौचनिःसृतसरित्प्रवरोदकेन तीर्थेन मूर्ध्नि अधिकृतेन शिवः शिवोऽभूत् ध्यातुर्मनःशमलशैलनिःसृष्टवज्रं ध्याये चिरं भगवतः. So in the first two verses, the Lord's limbs, which limb is described is very important. The whole meditation of the detailed meditation of the Lord's form begins with his lotus feet. So this is how one is supposed to take darshan of the Supreme Lord, from the lotus feet to the lotus face, not first looking at the face, but the darshan of the deities. When we go to the temple and take darshan, we start the darshan from the lotus feet of the Lord. We start to take the darshan from there. So the lotus feet is described first as in this meditation. Kapil Dev is also teaching us how to take darshan of the Lord. So first lotus feet is described, and what is there in the lotus feet? The lotus feet is marked with a thunderbolt, is marked with a gourd, ankush, the thing which is used to control the elephant, flag, a lotus. So in this way, the symbols on the lotus feet of the Lord are described, and then the splendor of his nails, how they are actually like a moon. They're like reddish, but they're also as bright as a moon. And Lord Shiva becomes all the more blessed by bearing on his head the holy waters that washed them. So the waters that washed the lotus feet of the Lord becomes the Ganges river, and that river actually is held by Lord Shiva on his head, and it purifies even Lord Shiva, who is considered auspicious. Yet Shaucha Nishrita Sharit Pravarodakena Tirthena Murdhini Adikitena Shivo Abhut. Shiva, one who is auspicious, becomes more auspicious. Shivaha Shivo Abhut. The auspicious one becomes most auspicious because he held the water which washed the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So, in this way, one has to meditate. So, when he meditates on this lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, what happens? It dispels the thick darkness in the heart. By meditating on the lotus feet of the Lord, the darkness in one's heart actually this gets dispelled. And this lotus feet, the meditation on the lotus feet, they act like thunderbolts on the mountain of the sin in one's mind. By focusing, taking darshan of the deities, It's not a no, okay, just go to the temple. Like in general, people, normal people, if you see, they will just come, they're just looking like this, and then they just go away. They don't actually give attention to taking darshan of the deities. As devotees, when we go to temple, especially with corona and all these restrictions, most of us don't even go to a temple very regularly. But even if you get to go, you can go there and meditate on the form of the Lord. The Lord is, these are the verses that we can recite. Yat shaucha nishkrita sharit pravarodakena tirtena murti adhikritena shivo shivo bhut dhyaturmana shamala shaila nishrishta vajram dhyayet chiram bhagavatas charanaravindam. So I meditate, chiram, I want to meditate long on this lotus feet of the Lord. So in this way, when we take the darshan of the deities, if we take it very carefully, then it can have the purifying effect on us. So in this way, Kapil Dev first describes the lotus feet, and then he describes the janu, which is below the knees, calves. So in this way, he is describing the calves. Janudvayam jala jalo chanaya jananya lakshmya khilasya suravanditaya vidhatu urvornidaya karapalavarochishayat samlalitam hridi vibhorabhavasya kuryat. So, what about the calves of the Supreme Lord? Fix in heart the activities of Lakshmi, who is always found massaging the Lord's legs and thighs. So, what are these legs, the calves and the thighs? What is the glory of these legs? These are the legs which are always massaged by Lakshmi Devi. The whole world is actually trying to possess her, but the yogi should fix in his heart the activities of Lakshmi, the service that she is performing to these lotus feet, to this Tana, Janu, to these calves, to these legs. It is the mother, so the supreme mother of the whole creation. She is always found massaging these legs. So, in this way, even she is carefully serving the Lord. So, in this way, the yogi can get an inspiration to serve the Supreme Lord when he looks at the calves of the Supreme Lord. जानुद्वयं जलजलोचनया जनन्या लक्ष्म्या किलस्य सुरवन्दितया विधातु ऊर्वोर्निधाय करपल्लवरोचिषायत् samlalitam hridi vibhorabhavasya kuryat. So next time when we get a chance to look at the calves of the Supreme Lord, the legs of the Supreme Lord, we can think how these are the same legs which is always massaged, which is very carefully served by the Supreme Goddess of Fortune. So that is a great meditation. And then he comes to the thighs. These thighs are explained how they appear most graceful when the Lord is on Garuda's shoulders. When he is actually sitting on Garuda's shoulders, then actually the thighs are actually more prominent. And it's these storehouse of all energy. So Urusuparna Bujayo Radishobamana Ojo Nidiyatarstika Kusumava Bhaso Vyalam Vipitavarava Sasivartamana Kanchi Kalapa Pariram Vinitam Bhabimbham. So the the thighs, which has the luster of a linseed flower. Honestly, I don't know what is a linseed flower. We can try to find what is it. And the Lord's thighs, they look most graceful when the Lord is carried on the shoulders of Garuda. Also, the yogi should contemplate on his rounded hips, which is encircled by a girdle that rests on the exquisite yellow silk. The yogi should meditate on the girdle that the Lord is wearing on top of the waist belt that the Lord is wearing, the jewelry or the waist belt jewel that he is wearing on top of the pitambar. So in this way, he will be able to, in detail, he will be able to focus on the Lord's form. First, he meditated on the lotus feet. Then he meditated on the calves of the Lord. Then he meditated on the thighs. Now, above the thighs is the waist. Before going to the waist, then the waist belt, he has to meditate on the waist belt. So now, after the waist belt, now he has to meditate on the hips and the girdle that is resting. And then he goes on to meditate on the navel of the Supreme Lord. So what is about the navel? Because it is moon-like in the center of his abdomen. It is the foundation of the entire universe from where the lotus stem originates, containing all the different planetary systems. It is from this navel that the whole material creation actually comes about. That is the source of all the material, the whole universe, which is all the planetary systems are situated. So it is like it is situated in the center of the abdomen. Navihradam bhuvanakosha guhodarastam yatratmayo nidishana kilalokapadmam vyudam harinmani vrishastanayoramushya dhyaye dvayam vishadharamayuka gauram. Then in the next verse, Vaksho adivasam vrishabhasya mahavibhute Pumsam manonayana nivritti madadaram Kantam cha kaustuvamaneradibhushanartham Kuryan manasi akhila loka namaskritasya. So in this verse, the 26th verse, the chest and the neck of the Lord are described, because now we saw first we saw the lotus feet, then the calves, then the thighs, then the hips, then the navel. Now we are going to see about the chest and neck. So in this previous verse, we also saw in the same, the yogi should meditate his minds on the Lord's nipples, which resemble a pair of most exquisite emeralds and which appear whitish because of the rays of the milk white pearl necklaces adorning his chest. He is having white pearl necklaces also on his chest. And now on this chest, who else is there? The yogi then should meditate on the chest of the Supreme Lord, which is the actually the abode of the goddess of fortune, Mahalakshmi. So the Lord's chest is the source of all transcendental pleasure for the mind and full satisfaction for the eyes. So the yogi then should imprint on his mind the neck of the Supreme Personality. Now that chest, he is meditating on the chest of the Supreme Lord. He has to meditate on the neck of the Supreme Lord. So the which is adored by the entire universe. His neck has these three. Even in the Damodar Ashtakam, we say how the Lord's neck has three lines like a conch shell. So the neck of the Lord serves to enhance the beauty of the Kaustubha gem which hangs on his chest. Generally, people wear jewelry to beautify them, but the Kaustubha gem becomes beautified when when it is worn by the Supreme Lord's on his neck. So that is how the beautiful the Lord's neck is. And then the next verse expressed to him, the 27th verse speaks about the arms of the Lord. Now the chest and neck has come, then the shoulders and the arms are described in the 27th verse. Bahumscha mandaragire parivartanena nirnikta bahuvalaya nadilokapalan sancintaye dashashataramasakhya teja shankam cha tatkara ruharaja. So what is it about the arms? It's the source of all the power of all the demigods. It's the controller of nature's functions. These demigods actually control all the various functions of the nature, material nature, but they are all actually their source of all their powers comes from these arms of the Supreme Lord. And these arms also hold the Sudarshan Chakra. The conch looks like a swan and his lotus like palm. So because the conch is so whitish and the hands are so reddish, it looks like a lotus like palm is holding a swan. So in this way, the Lord's hands are described. And then he also is holding a kaumodaki, a club. Kaumodakim bhagavato daitam smareta digdamarati bhatasho nitakardamena malam madhuvratavarutta giropagustam chitchaitasya tattvamalam manimasya kante. So then he has a manimasya kante on his, he has a mala and he has a pearl necklace. So it is said that always surrounded by the bumblebees, the garlands are looking very fresh with their nice buzzing sound. The bumblebees are always around because the flowers are so fresh. And the pearl necklace that the Lord is wearing is representing the pure living entities who are always engaged in the service. The white pearl necklaces are actually showing the uh, representing the pure living entities who are actually serving the Supreme Lord always. So then the next verse speaks about his mood, about his lotus face. What happens? What is about the lotus fate of the Supreme Lord? Mrityanukampita diyeha grihita murte sanchintayet bhagavato vadanarvindam यद्विस्फुरन्मकरकुण्डलवल्गितेन विद्योतिमालकपोलमुदारनासं यत्श्रीनिकेतमलिभिः परिसेव्यमानं भूत्या स्वया कुटिलकुण्टलवृन्दजुष्टं मीनद्वयाश्रयमधिक्षिपदब्जनेत्रं ध्यायेन्मनोमयमतन्द्रितोल्लसद्भु. So the yogi then should meditate on the lotus-like face of the Lord, who represents the his different form of this world out of his compassion. He comes to this world out of his compassion for to save his devotees. He is actually anxious. His nose is prominent and his crystal clear cheeks are illuminated by oscillation of his glittering alligator shaped earrings. Makara Kundala. Because his earrings are actually illuminating. The crystal clear cheeks are illuminated by, they are reflected, the earrings are reflected on his cheeks. So the yogi then meditates upon the beautiful face of the Lord, because this face has the curly hair and also decorated by the lotus like eyes and the dancing eyebrows. A lotus surrounded by swarming bees and a pair of swimming fish would be put to shame by its elegance. The two eyes look like fish, and a lotus surrounded by swarming bees is the face is the lotus, the hair is the swarming bees, and the fish is the two eyes. So in that way his face is described. तस्यावलोकमधिकं कृपयाति घोरान् तापत्रयोपशमनाय निसृष्टमक्ष्णो स्निग्धस्मितानुगुणितं विपुलप्रसादं ध्यायेत् चिरं विपुलभावनया गुहायम्. So in the 31st verse, the yogi is explained to should contemplate with full devotion the compassionate glances of the Supreme Lord. What is the effect of the smile of the Supreme Lord on the living entity? That is explained in the next verse. Ha samhare ravanata kilaloka tivra saukashrusagar vishoshanamathyudaram sammohanaya rachitam nijamaya yasya भ्रूमण्डलं मुनिकृते मकरध्वजस्य. So in this verse, a yogi is said that he should be meditating on the smile of the Supreme Lord. So what is the effect of meditating on the smile of the Supreme Lord? The smile of the Supreme Lord dries away the ocean of tears caused by intense grief. Sanatan Goswami says, because the living entity took so many lifetimes, so many births, if you take all the tears that a living entity shed in all these lifetimes, it will fill an ocean. That's why here it is said, Shoka Ashru Sagara. Shoka is agony, pain, or grief. Shokashru is the tears that one sheds, one actually sheds out of grief. Shokashru Sagara, that amount of tears that a living entity sheds is like a sagara, is like an ocean. So over so many lifetimes, the amount of tears that the living entity has shed, if it is collected, it is as good as it can fill an ocean. And that much is the grief that is taken away by meditating on the smile of the Supreme Lord. Sammohanaya rachitam nijamaya yasya. The yogi should also meditate on the Lord's arched eyebrows, which are manifested by his internal potency in order to charm the sex god for the good of the sages. If we meditate on the eyebrows of the Supreme Lord, then by that effect of the meditation on the eyebrows of the Supreme Lord, we will not be agitated by sexual impulses. So that is how powerful, because the Cupid also has two arrows, has a bow, and then there is an arrow. It is said the Lord's eyebrows actually look like the bow. So that is why the bow of the Cupid will lose its effect if we meditate on the bow like eyebrows on the face of the Supreme Lord. So, and then the last verse 33 in this section, ध्यानायं प्रहसितं बहुलादरोष्ट भाषारुणायिततनु द्विजकुण्डपङ्क्ति ध्यायेत् स्वदेहकुहरे अवतिस्य विष्णोर्भक्त्या दयार्पितमना न पृथक्तरिष्येत्. So the Lord's laughter is explained. How he laughs, how he smiles, and how he actually is, by meditating on this, what happens to the yogi. So it is so captivating that it can be easily meditated upon. The Lord's laughter is so captivating, it is said. The small teeth resemble jasmine buds. When he smiles, you can see his teeth, and rendered rosy by the splendor of his lips. Once devoting his mind to this, the yogi should no longer desire to see anything else. In this way, the yogi should continue to meditate in detail. He should not give up the form of the Lord. So, in this way, he should continue to meditate in detail from the lotus feet to the face of the Supreme Lord, his laughter. And in this way, when he meditates, then he gradually develops love for the Lord, and he starts exhibiting even symptoms like hair standing on ends and tears rolling. And gradually, he withdraws his mind from all material activities. So his detachment is from everything material and achievement of his real identity. That's what he will we will focus on this section 34 to 38. So in the 34th verse, it is said how by meditation he gradually develops love for the Lord, and he gradually withdraws his mind from all other material activities. And in this way, when the mind is detached from material contamination, it becomes like a flame of a lamp. It becomes very steady and becomes dovetailed with the Supreme Lord. Because his mind is now detached, because he is completely dovetailed with the Supreme Lord, he becomes transcendental to all happiness and distress, and he realizes that his relationship with the Supreme Lord is real, and all his pain and pleasure that he experienced is all like not real. It is all due to his own false ego. So he gets detached from the pain and pressure. So in this way, gradually he becomes unaware of the body, even though he is living in the body. And the example given is a drunken person, even though he is living, he is not aware of his body. Similarly, this yogi, even though he is living in the body, he becomes completely unaware of the body, and his body becomes completely under the Lord's protection. As long as it is time for, as long as he has to live, it functions and then he lives in it. But when his time comes to pass, then the body is finished. He does not accept any of the byproducts of his body as his own thing. He does not identify with them. So in this way, he lives as if he is living in a dream within this body. So in this way, he is completely detached. This is the state of his mind. He is, even though he's in the body, he is not even aware of the bodily existence. He is completely focused on the Supreme Lord. So in this way, his thought process, the yogi should see the super soul in all beings and all beings in the super soul. So that is the main thought process. He is only thinking about the super soul always. So it is said a person may have sons, daughters, and he may earn a lot of wealth. Ultimately, they are all separated objects from his own existence. Similarly, Yogi also starts to see how, even though he is in this body, he is different from the body. So he gives up that attachment. So then he sees the body as separate and him as separate, even while living with the body. And he also how the different fires manifest, the fire manifests differently depending on the wood that it is being coming out of. So or sparks or smoke, in this way it is differently manifested. So similarly, the Lord is also different from the jiva senses, the five elements, and the consciousness. Even though he is also within the body, he can clearly see how the Supreme Lord is different from himself, from the body that he possesses, from the consciousness that he has. And in this way, gradually he discerns and understands the super soul and sees the super soul in everything. And and he sees everything in super soul, and he sees super soul in everything. And in this way, fire appears different in different types of wood. Similarly, the soul takes different bodies under different conditions, different modes. Sorry, I wrote again different bodies, it is different modes. So according to the different modes, the soul may take different bodies, but he is not concerned about, he is not bewildered by all those things. He completely conquers the Maya, and he remains in a self-realized state. And in the next chapter, we will see how Devhuti asks more questions about bhakti. Now that Kapil Dev has explained about Sankhya and Yoga, now Devhuti directs her attention back to the process of bhakti because she was just curious about these processes, so she wanted to know. But what she actually wants to practice is bhakti. So, in this next chapter that we will
It's
see
8
next
o'clock.
week, 29, she will again start to inquire about bhakti, about the influence of time, and in reply, Kapil Dev will explain about the devotional service, which is beyond pure devotional service, and bhakti, which is affected by three gunas. Yeah, all these different details he will explain the next week. So thank you for joining, and